With Ben Johnson going to the Chicago Bears, where does that leave our Las Vegas Raiders? One name that has become a favorite is Pete Carroll. But what else is out there? Now, I know that, we all wanted Ben Johnson, and we've talked about this before, but, moving on, there's going to be a lot of different candidates and some people that not a lot of people really wanted as their first choice. But I wanted to kind of go over some of the other coaching candidates that the Raiders can actually go out and hire. But before I get into that, we got to look at the coaches that the Raiders have already interviewed and have requested to interview. That list starts off with Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnola, former Jets head coach Robert Saleh, Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, and former Commanders head coach Ron Rivera. Now, one name that has been interesting in these last couple of days outside of Pete Carroll has been Kliff Kingsbury. Now, I know that the Raiders have not interviewed him yet, and I think that window has closed, and now the Raiders are going to just have to wait for in-person interviews until the Washington Commanders are eliminated from the playoffs. Who knows how long that's going to be, but he's one guy that has been heavily touted as one of the favorites for this Las Vegas Raiders team. And on top of that, some news that came out today, Liam Cohen, Buccaneers offense coordinator, one guy that also a lot of people wanted over here to possibly be the next head coach, will be returning to the Buccaneers. He signed a new contract. He turned down the Jaguars' in-person interview and will be returning back home to Tampa Bay. So that eliminates him from the head coaching candidate, which kind of limits the Raiders. There's no Ben Johnson, there's no Mike Vrabel, there's no Liam Cohen, but still there are some other candidates out there. And shout out to Fansided, they posted next best head coach hires the Raiders can make after losing on Ben Johnson. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm just going to kind of go over the 5 candidates that they have for the Raiders, and I'll give you guys my reaction on each of them. Starting with number 5, Commanders offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury, saying that Kliff Kingsbury has helped the Washington Commanders reach the NFC Championship year 1 into the rebuild. He might be ready to take over a team again. Now, it's kind of crazy considering the Raiders actually were set to hire him last year as our offensive coordinator. Obviously, things didn't pan out. Tom Telesco didn't give him that extra year, and he just backed out and went to Washington. And look at where they're at right now, man. Right now, he's preparing his team for the NFC Championship game, and the Raiders are just sitting at home with no head coach and no GM. That being said, though, looking at what he's done over there with the Commanders as their offense coordinator, he was able to lead their offense and take down the high-powered Lions, scoring 45 points, something no other team has done this season. And I know there was a report that Adam Schefter said that he's not in a rush to becoming a head coach, but when Kliff was asked if he was interested in getting back to becoming a head coach, this is what he had to say.
Do you want to be a head coach again?
Yeah, I'm sure at some point. Yeah, at some point.
Now, I do understand why a lot of people are kind of turning to Kliff Kingsbury. Yes, he was a head coach, and, I wouldn't mind Kliff Kingsbury. He's a pretty good offense coordinator, and he's helped lead teams to playoffs. I mean, he helped the Cardinals, even though his stint over there with the Arizona Cardinals wasn't really that big or flashy, he still was able to at least bring a competitive team over there to the NFC West. And if the Raiders really do want an offensive-minded head coach, then he's one name to definitely keep an eye on. He's also way younger than Pete Carroll, so I feel like that's one reason why a lot of people would rather go the Kliff Kingsbury route. Number 4 on their list is Bills offense coordinator Joe Brady, saying that Joe Brady and the Buffalo Bills offense has been potent this season, so naturally the Raiders should be interested in translating that to the West Coast. Brady has helped Allen and the Bills into one of the best teams in the AFC, one game away from the Super Bowl. Brady also has been able to make the most out of this Bills young core, and the Raiders do have a young core as well, one of the youngest teams in the NFL. So, seeing what he's done over there with the Bills and still been able to succeed, I hope that he could do that over here, and he could possibly do that. But the one thing that they have that we don't have is a franchise quarterback. So if he was to come over here, then he's going to have to find this guy. And maybe that might be intriguing for him. But again, this is another guy that has no experience of being a head coach. So, take it for what you will. Number 3 on their list is Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnola. Now, Steve Spagnola is very familiar with the Raiders. He could be the secret weapon to get them competitive in the AFC West. Now, no coaching candidate knows the Raiders like Spagnola does, which makes him an extremely good option to take over the team. He would know exactly what the team needs to not only compete in the division, but to compete against his former team in the Kansas City Chiefs. That said, hiring him doesn't mean that they'll immediately beat the Chiefs, but it does mean that he could take some of that championship pedigree they've built over what feels like the last decade to get Las Vegas contending in the AFC. Now, he does make a good point because, hiring Steve would really weaken the Chiefs, I guess, a little. Who knows by how much, but just the experience that he has with that team could possibly resonate with the team that we have right now. And it's going to take a lot. Steve is not really my number one candidate as well, but he does have experience, and that's one thing that I've wanted. He was an interim head coach for the New York Giants in 2007, then became the St. Louis Rams head coach from 2009 to 2011, and he has won 4 Super Bowls as a defensive coordinator. On top of that, Tom Brady does have a lot of respect for him, and he's one name to definitely watch out in the head coaching carousel. But again, this is still not one guy I really would want on the team, but I wouldn't mind. I would give everybody the benefit of the doubt if we were to hire him. I always try to see the good in people until they come over here and really don't do shit. You know what I mean? But hey, if we get a guy with experience like Steve, then okay, I'll take it for what it is. Now, their number one candidate that they have the Raiders hiring as the next head coach is former Jets head coach Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh deserves to be a head coach again after the New York Jets debacle, and Las Vegas could be a good landing spot. Saying Robert Saleh should get another shot to rebuild a program after the fallout of the New York Jets fiasco. He was jettisoned as the problem when in actuality it was Woody Johnson being inept that cost the Jets from reaching the potential they could have. But as they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and Saleh could be a golden ticket for the Raiders to become competitive in the AFC West. While Saleh struggled to win in New York, that wasn't his fault. There were several factors that caused him to struggle and never really gain his ground. The Raiders are doing a full rebuild. It would be a clean slate for Saleh. The Raiders is a job that if he doesn't succeed, then maybe he was to blame for the struggles in New York. But if he does help the Raiders compete in what looks to be a difficult division, it would have been the perfect opportunity. That's a lot. That's a lot to kind of take in right now. And I told you guys before, even after the interview that he had with the Raiders, he wasn't my top choice. But with Ben Johnson off the board right now and a lot of other candidates kind of pulling out and, interested in other teams, he might be a real possibility for the Raiders outside of Pete Carroll and possibly Kliff Kingsbury, but that's yet to be seen because the Raiders haven't really reached out for Kliff Kingsbury yet. But outside of Pete Carroll, there's really nobody that's a favorite, and Robert Saleh, most likely, if he doesn't land a head coaching position, he could be a defensive coordinator. Now, one thing that I would say, I know a lot of things were against him with the New York Jets. That franchise is just all over the place. The Raiders are all over the place as well, but there is some promise there. And I could see a world in where the Raiders end up, bringing in Pete Carroll and possibly bringing in Robert Saleh as a defensive coordinator. I think that's the best case scenario for the Raiders moving forward. You bring in Robert Saleh, let him sit behind Pete Carroll, let Pete Carroll mold the team, build this team, build a culture in the locker room, and then let Robert Saleh build the defense. He's a great defensive coordinator, and there's a lot of teams that would love to have him as a defensive coordinator. But if you promise Robert Saleh that he will be the guy to take over the reins when Pete Carroll moves on, then I think that would be something that he would really be interested in. And I would love. I think that is the best case scenario for the Raiders, is getting Pete Carroll in the building, letting him build this team, build a culture, get the right players in free agency and in an NFL draft, and bring the Raiders back to relevance as playoff contenders. And then we move forward from there. I think I like that situation a lot better, But, some of my top choices, if that doesn't go that way, I guess it would definitely be Pete Carroll. You got Kliff Kingsbury and Todd Monken. So I know the Raiders requested Todd Monken, but really haven't heard anything yet on scheduling an interview. So it's going to be really interesting these next couple of days to see where the Raiders are going to go, what direction they're going to go in right now. But with that said, Raider Nation, what are your thoughts on this? Who is your favorite head coaching option for the Raiders right now? Let me know down in the comments below. But if this is the very first time you guys are coming across my channel and you love the Las Vegas Raiders, man, and you love daily Raider news, then hit that subscribe button, hit that notification icon button to notify you guys when I upload more videos just like this. Until the next one, this is your boy, some more Raider, and your boys. Yeah.